Hello there. What is going on, everybody? Today we're going to be talking about the Assault Frigate Mark II. If you've been following me for a while, you'll know that I used to do ship breakdowns for Star Wars Armada, and I did most of the ships in-game, but there hasn't been a whole lot of new stuff to talk about those ships until just maybe the last 6 months or so, because we've had a lot of new content for Star Wars Armada, which is a great thing, but also means that there's a lot of new upgrades and new mechanics that have kind of breathed some new life into a lot of these older ships. So if you like this video, let me know what you think in the comments below, and perhaps I will do more revisits to some older ships and see how they function in a post-Wave 8 2020 world of Star Wars Armada. Alright guys, so I'm going to be doing this. I also do want to remind you guys there's still time left to enter the giveaway for a $25 Amazon gift card. If you are interested in that, all you have to do is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. Let me know what your favorite new upgrade or mechanic is that's been introduced since, since Armada was a little bit stale about a year ago. But we've got a Super Star Destroyer, we've got, Rebellion in the Rim, we've got Wave 8, the Starhawk, and the Onager. A lot of new stuff has come into the game that's breathed some new life into the game and brought a wealth of new mechanics and upgrades, as well as some FAQs also. And all of that has caused me to really want to take a new look at some older ships. And I thought, what better ship than the one I think had one of the most significant changes, and that is the Assault Frigate. So, first off, let's talk about the Assault Frigate. We've got two versions. We've got this Mark IIA and the Mark IIB, and it's a very ugly ship. Yes, I said it. It's probably the ugliest ship in the game, at least by a lot of people's accounts. I know there's going to be a few of you who disagree with me. There are probably some of you, even, who think it's the most beautiful ship in Armada. I think I could probably count on one hand the number of people who feel that way. However, I think the ship that's least recognizable and also least looks like your typical Star Wars ship. So I think had they gone perhaps with the Assault Frigate Mark I, as opposed to Mark II when they were creating this, they might have seen a ship that got a lot more attention and got fielded a lot more. It's kind of a jack-of-all-trades ship, though. So if you remove its appearance from the equation, you're left with a really nice set of stats and upgrades. You've got a brace, a redirect, and evade. And evade is weird on a larger ship. This is a medium ship. It's actually currently the only medium ship available for the Rebels. You've got 6 hull, and you have a 3 command ship. So it kind of functions in a lot of ways kind of like a large ship, although it's just not quite as tanky. It's moderately tanky, though, and it performs many roles very well. It's a good gun ship. It has a decent amount of offense, especially at long range. But it doesn't have any black die, so it's not a ship that you really want to get up close, which is one of the reasons why it's good that it happens to have an evade, because it functions moderately well at long range. It's moderately tanky, it's moderately everything, and that's kind of one of the strengths of the ship, but also probably a weakness, because a lot of people want to min-max their builds and don't want something that does something moderately well when they have the option to take something that does it exceptionally well. Well, I'm starting to think that now there are some new roles that this ship can perform exceptionally well, and we're going to look at that. But let's look at the way the ship is now and maybe some of the old roles that it used to perform well. Well, the ship has very good broadside arcs. It's got 3 red on both versions. Has 3 red dice and a blue die on its broadsides, which lend itself very well to Akbar fleets. Akbar was very, very common. There was a lot of builds that had like maybe a home 1 and a 2 assault frigates. The Mark IIB was the more popular one because at long range it functioned the same, and still could take advantage of Akbar, still had the same upgrades, and it was only 72 points. So that much is awesome. The Mark IIB, it's going to be able to take gunnery teams because of that weapons team. Like, you've got officer, weapons team, offensive retrofit, defensive retrofit, and turbolaser. Very, very solid upgrade choices. It's also a candidate for a lot of the new boarding teams that you can put on there because of the offensive retrofit and the gunnery team. But a lot of times people would run this with gunnery team, take advantage of the stronger arc. It works really well with Akbar, and I think it's the cheapest ship that you could put with Akbar to really get a good side arc shot and also take gunnery teams. So that was one of the reasons why assault frigates were so popular amongst early Akbar fleets. And I'm also going to say that's a testament to the game Armada, because older fleets and older strategies still work tremendously well. Everything is viable. Schmitty won Gen Con with Garm Bel Iblis, so like anything from the early days of Armada is still competitive and can still work today. You just have to practice it and practice the game, and sometimes it takes a little bit of luck, but really practice and you know, everything is viable that way. It helps that Schmidt's a really good player too. So, but the point is, old stuff still works. Akbar Assault Frigate strategy still viable. I'm not saying that the old strats aren't good. I'm saying there's also happens to be some new ideas. So let's talk about some of the new ideas. Because I think the Assault Frigate Mark IIb was the more common one. I think the Mark IIa will become a little bit more popular now with some new strats. Now, the big differences between the two is the Mark IIb is cheaper. Mark IIb has less anti-squadron, but has more squadron support, and is missing a die in the front and rear arcs. And that's about the summary of the changes. Still Command 3, still have 4 engineering, which is also really nice, especially you know, for some of the upgrades that we're going to be looking at. But we don't have any new titles, so we still have the same titles. We've got Paragon and Gallant Haven. Gallant Haven has been nerfed a little bit over the time. It's still decent, but I think Paragon was the one that sounded cool on paper, but was really hard to properly implement. But I think that's one of the ones I want to relook at, because I think we got some new options because of Salvo. So that much is really cool. So let's talk about Salvo. I want to talk about Salvo first, and then we'll look at some things that make the Assault Frigate Mark IIa good. I mean, they're both good, but like how Salvo could be really awesome. So Salvo's our new token. You can get that a couple of ways. You can get that with Kirsta Agate as your commander, and she makes a pretty good commander for a ship like this. You can add a token to a ship, and you can also discard a token to get its effect, but you're not spending that token. So even if you're accuracy'd, you can just say, you know what, I don't need that. Now, Kirsta Agate is not necessarily the best ship to be, or the best commander to put on a ship like this, because you do already have defensive retrofits, so you could put ECMs on there, but you don't necessarily have to, because now if you got Kirsta Agate, you could look at, well, maybe I want to put early warning system, because if I'm trying to do the broadside arc thing, maybe I want early warning system on there. If I'm doing something like a broadside fleet, that's certainly an option. Or maybe I want to do something like reinforced blast doors, which is actually not a bad option if you've got Kirsta Agate and you can guarantee you're going to be able to brace. You'll probably survive long enough to be able to pop those reinforced blast doors, and it's cheaper. So maybe you want to do certain things like that, especially if cost is an issue. Kirsta Agate's also great because she's a cheaper commander. So if cost becomes an issue, there's some different options there defensively for this ship that was already moderately tanky. It was already moderately tanky, but now it could get a lot more tanky because of some of the new stuff. So this actually makes a viable flagship on a lot of those builds. You also have Flag Bridge, which I don't think is in Ryan Kingston. There it is. We do have Flag Bridge. So because you have the offensive retrofit, you can add a Flag Bridge, which is going to give you a fleet command. And so you can put a fleet command on this ship now, because Flag Bridge is medium or large ship only, and of course has to be your flagship. And, this gives you a whole wealth, opens up a whole new upgrade slot for the Assault Frigate. Now, this only really works because this happens to be a medium ship. The Rebels only have one medium ship, and so that's another really cool thing about the Assault Frigate and kind of a unique place in the Rebellion, because hey, otherwise you'd have to use it on a large ship. And, if you're trying to cut costs, large ships tend to be more expensive. So, like this is a great option to put something like maybe you want to take evasive action, or maybe that one round where you want to intensify firepower because all of your ships have great shots. Maybe they're at long range. You don't trust those red dice. Boom, we can put intensify firepower on there. We've got great support coming from our flagship at this point. Very cool options. Now, I said I was going to talk about Salvo, and I kind of glazed over it when I mentioned Kirsta Agate because she got me going off on a tangent. But let's talk about Salvo. So it's a new defense token. You can spend that. As soon as the attack's over, you get to counterattack with your printed rear arc. I say printed rear arc because spinal armaments isn't going to help you. If you put spinal armament on there, you're not going to be able to add that red die. You can't actually add any dice to a Salvo attack, but you can modify dice. Now, that's one reason why I think the Assault Frigate Mark IIa is going to be more advantageous because of the fact that it's got a better printed rear arc. Now, if you're staying at long range, the Mark IIb is fine. But if you're going to eventually get a little bit closer or expect enemies to want to get closer to you, then the Assault Frigate Mark IIa, great option because you're going to get 3 dice. 3 dice is the strongest salvo attack in the game when you're playing at 400 points. If you're going beyond 400 points, yes, the Superstar Destroyer expensive variants do have a 4-die printed rear attack, so you can get salvo on them a little bit better, but realistically, you're not going to be able to do that. The other way you can get salvo is through your weapons team. through the local fire control upgrade. And this one is amazing because this one is going to have you to replace one of your defense tokens with a Salvo token. This is, if you're not going with Kirsta Agate, which maybe you won't. She doesn't have to be on this ship. It's a very versatile ship. Will work in just about any build. And that's one thing that's great about this particular ship. But local fire control is going to have you swap one of your tokens. Now, the cool thing is this is after you deploy. And it means you're going to be able to take note of what your opponent is fielding, and you're going to be able to make that choice when the time comes. So a lot of times you may say, well, all right, well, in this case, I'm probably going to need my redirect. I'm probably going to need, definitely going to need my brace. You always keep the brace. It really boils down to, am I going to replace the evade or the redirect? Most people will probably choose the evade. Here's, I think, the exception. If you're facing an onager, or maybe even more than one onager, you may want to keep your evade. And we've got a dog chewing on the chew toy over here. That's what's, I'm not squeaking. That's not me. If you hear that. But yes, so the local fire control, I think you're going to make the decision when you see what your opponent is flying. If you notice, for example, maybe your opponent is running a whole bunch of XI7s, then maybe you ditch the redirect. Because, hey, redirect's not going to be helpful to you. Well, not as helpful with XI7s. So local fire control gives you that choice. That's awesome. It gives you the Salvo defense token. Now, when somebody does attack you, you're going to be able to attack back with 3 dice if it's on the A, only 2 dice if it's on the B. Of course, they still have to be in range. So if you're staying at long range, well, then the B is fine too. But with the A, you're still just going to roll 2 red dice back, which is phenomenal for certain upgrades, like Lynx Turbolaser Towers, which lets you reroll a red die in your attack pool. I absolutely love this upgrade, and I think it works really, really well with local fire control. We're actually going to build out a super awesome Assault Frigate this way. We'll build out a couple different versions. So Lynx Turbolasers is amazing for the Assault Frigate, because that's always been one of the problems that the Rebels had in general, because they don't have Vader, they don't have anybody to, do all that stuff. And you can run a Pelta if you want to have like a cheap, intensify firepower every turn, so you kind of can do that, but now you don't necessarily have to because you got Lynx Turbolasers. Lynx Turbolasers lets you reroll a red die every time, and if you're doing a squadron attack, you can attack maybe just one squadron, and then boom, add 2 dice of any colors if you to that. You can make one of them red, and of course re-roll it with Lynx Turbolaser Towers too, which is cool. It actually works really, really well if you happen to have like double arc and you're only shooting squadrons, and like, all right, this for my side arc I can see just one squadron. I'll do that, boom, get my extra dice, and then on the front arc, all right, now I've got everybody else, and now I can still attack additional. As long as it's a separate attack, you're not gonna, so you can still attack multiple squadrons with Lynx Turbolaser Towers. Just has to be a whole separate attack. So that's kind of cool. Salvo also, by the way, works against squadrons. So you can, spend a Salvo token if a squadron's attacking you and re-attack them with your anti-squadron battery, which again, on the Assault Frigate Mark II-A is now actually higher than it was before. So I'm a big fan of Lynx Turbolaser Towers, and I'll tell you another good reason, Paragon. All right, so we were talking about titles. Well, I don't think Gallant Haven has had a whole lot of improvements with late stuff, but Paragon has because of Salvo. The idea here is that if you can get somebody to attack you first, then you respond with Salvo. Now you have this great option of, like, you hit them normally with a Salvo attack. Now you have attacked them this round. Now if you can somehow manage to double arc them, which shouldn't be too hard, especially if you're flying kind of mostly at them. That's why I think this is better on the Assault Frigate Mark II-A, because you're probably not going to be staying at long range, because then you'll only have one shot. So if you're trying like kind of more or less fly directly at your opponent, or maybe at a slight angle in hopes to kind of line up that double arc shot, Paragon's perfect for that. And of course, works better with the Mark II-A because you're probably going to at least be in medium range. Even if they're close to you and try to fly away, a lot of times you'll still be in medium range of somebody. So the dream situation here is somebody attacks you, you salvo, and then, oh, my turn, I've got a front shot and a side shot on you. I got a reroll on both of them, plus I had the reroll on the salvo itself with Lynx Turbolaser Towers, and I'm adding a black dice. So now I'm rolling 4 dice out the front, 5 dice out the side, and that's without even concentrate fire. That's tremendous. That's tremendous. Now, this is probably not something that's going to work in an Akbar build, because you're not going to be able to have gunnery teams in this case. You're not going to, because if you wanted salvo, you've got to spend your weapons team on local fire control. So that's one of those things where it's like, all right, well, but again, if you're going Akbar, just go with one of the older builds. Again, those are still viable. They're still good. And you can even go with Akbar build and put Lynx Turbolaser towers on there, which is awesome. There's still plenty of stuff for the old builds as well. And of course, if you're doing something like this, I think ECM is really good now because people might not try and target your brace. If you have that dream shot lined up with Paragon, they may very well try to stop your salvo. Especially if a small ship's trying to finish you off or trying to weaken your shields or something. People very well may try to stop your salvo. If you're not running a gate, ECM I think is mandatory. And that's pretty significant. Now we got a lot of new officers with this ship. I think Ezra is a solid option. Ezra Bridger is good because you are a medium-sized ship. You're a lot bigger now, and Ezra is going to be able to move stuff out of the way, which is awesome. He's gonna be able to move stuff out of the way. You can try and push it in front, or you can pull the space station closer to you, maybe, or push something in front of an opponent's ship. Maybe clear up an obstruction because this is when you reveal a command. And all things that I think that are going to be important for this type of ship, but I think he works on any ship. He's not something that's exclusively really great to this ship. And for new stuff right here, there's a lot of new stuff. I'm not going to go over every single new card. I do want to talk about Kirsta Agate as an officer, though, if you're not running her as... before I do that, though, Expert Shield Tech, I want to mention that, too. If you are facing... XI7's Expert Shield Tech is pretty cool. Because you can just spend that just to reduce the damage. It's also good against bombers too if they try to get you. I do like the Expert Shield Tech, but I don't know if it's the best in this particular type of build. Primarily because of hey, I'd rather be able to keep my redirect for the full redirect if I'm not facing. That's not I think in this top build here with this Paragon, I'm probably more likely to go ahead and get rid of the evade since I'm going to be coming in close and swap the evade with the salvo. And I think this would actually work well as a Dodonna build because I'm going to get in close. I'm going to have black dice also with Paragon plus the blue. I'm pretty likely to get those crits in. And also the basic critical effect is the only critical effect you can do with salvo. So I could potentially from this ship I could generate 3 critical effects on the same ship in one turn if I'm lucky. So I like Dodonna for that kind of build. I'm going to use the Assault Frigate Mark II-B here. Now, what if I want to stay at longer range? I think the B is still an option. Let's say we still want local fire control. Let's say we still want that for salvo. We've got some different options that we can run with a ship like this. Let's say we want Kirsta Agate as our officer. Kirsta Agate as the officer. Now, she's got a red or blue crit. You can exhaust this card to ready one of your exhausted defense tokens, which is super cool. It's very similar. It's basically... extra use of defense tokens. It still fits the theme of Agate. This is also a special crit that you can resolve during salvo, which is awesome. Again, you're going to need local fire control for this. If we're staying at long range, well, then maybe we want to get rid of our redirect in this case. And that may be the case. And if that's the case, maybe we're going to queue up a couple of extra engineering commands, and you can just do the redirect in reverse. And what I mean by that is, I took 4 damage on my front. I took like 6 damage on my side. I braced it down to 3. Now I got no shields left on my side. I couldn't redirect it. Okay, next turn engineering 4. All right, let me pull them for the other side, push them back, or pull 2 from the other side and then regenerate an extra one. So you can do the the redirect in reverse as long as you don't die from it. And having the braces makes it more likely that you're not going to die from that one good attack. And also, you got a lot of shields and a lot of hull, so it takes a lot to one-shot an Assault Frigate. It's possible, but I think it's a safe bet to assume you probably won't, and you can probably survive that way. So what else do we want to add here? I think there's a really cool option with Kirsta Agate Officer, and that is going with something like Turbolaser reroute circuits. If I'm trying to stay at long range, I could do an Assault Frigate Mark II-B with Turbolaser reroute circuits, and there's a really cool option here. All right, let's say I just got the 1 salvo. You shoot me, I spend the salvo, maybe I brace also, I don't know. I fire back, again, we're at long range, so the 2 printed red is fine. And here's what I do. If I roll the crit, I'm fine. If not, I got a lot of insurance. I can exhaust TRC, turn it to a crit, turn a red to a crit, and now I can get my salvo back immediately. Or get my evade back immediately if I got rid of the... it depends if I think I'm going to get shot again. So I make the choice on what I want to have available to me, and I get it back. But ideally, I can get the salvo back again. Or maybe I roll perfectly and I don't need to. Again, you can only exhaust Kirsta Agate once this way. So maybe if I haven't attacked yet, You know, or maybe I roll the crit naturally. Good. All right, let me save my salvo. I'll attack, move in, and then if I get attacked again, you know, I still have the salvo ready. It's just a really cool option, and Turbolaser reroute circuits kind of forces you to be. You're going to guarantee that you'll be able to have your salvo back again, because you can force that crit. And if you roll the crit naturally, then you can force a double, or you know. It's just like the choices you have here and the ability to refresh. You can choose which defense token to refresh. You can choose which die, and all of them are good options. But the key here is that you have to use local fire control to get rid of your redirect, because you need that evade to trigger Turbolaser reroutes. But it's kind of cool, because now even if you think you're going to get attacked a second time, especially if it's from a small ship with like maybe only 1 or 2 dice, then instead of salvo, maybe you just set the redirect back. Also really good if onagers are there and they're trying to hit you, because again, redirects now, evades now will cancel 2 dice at extreme range. So that is pretty cool. I'm going to add another Assault Frigate Mark IIA, because I have a different thing that I want to do with this build. And this isn't actually a build, but I mean, I suppose it could be. But another thing about the Mark IIA, and the last card I want to talk about in this video, because I could talk probably all day, but there's another thing I think is kind of cool, is Heavy Fire Zone. Not always the best option on a lot of ships, but I think the Assault Frigate Mark IIA is a decent option for it, because what it does is it turns your 2 blue into 2 red for anti-squadron. So now here, all of a sudden, here's a ship that you can really, really let loose and fire on some enemy ships with, or some enemy squadrons with. Red dice, I mean, that's that's really cool. This could be like a dedicated anti-fighter ship. You could do a lot of other things with this also. You could still put local fire control on there. You can do Katekin and Sholin if there's somebody you absolutely have to get. I think that's certainly an option. I think, you know, gosh, Ruthless Strategist won't work because you don't want them to be engaged. But I mean, you can add General Draven to this ship. So when your opponent does bring a screen of A-wings, now you're rolling 2 red and a black, or 3 red, you know, or something like that. One thing you can't do here is if you had an extra Turbolaser slot, then of course you could add something like Lynx Turbolasers, and then you'd have those red dice and rerolls. So you don't have that as an option. But I thought I'd talk about Heavy Fire Zone as well, because I think that's a really cool option, just to be able to have that type of protection. So Assault Frigate has got a lot of new tricks that it can do, whether it's, you know, long range or getting closer. And this is, even though this is an Assault Frigate Mark IIA, I still consider this one more of a longer range, because it's going to be a big threat from a distance. And this would work well with other ships and other anti-squadron efforts. I think there's a lot of really cool things that you can do here. So those are just some of my thoughts about the Assault Frigate Mark II. I think it's got a lot of new options, and really I focused this video on the newer options. So I would love to hear what you guys think, and if you want me to do more of these, let me know. Big thanks to Ryan Kingston. I'm using Ryan Kingston's Fleet Builder in this particular video. I'll put a link to that down in the description below, because it's a great fleet builder. Really helps visualize everything that we're looking at as well. So I'm a big fan of that. And big thanks to Fantasy Flight Games for making a great game that everything is viable. It's like my quote, right? Everything is viable in this game, like just about, really. And there's maybe like 1 or 2 cards. We could put our minds to it and come up with a couple of cards that are probably not viable, but for the most part, like Yasani Assard, I don't think she's viable, right? But I mean, you could probably come up with some kind of list that she wasn't terrible in, maybe. Maybe if you wanted Vader to choke her out. Anyway, all right, guys, that's all I've got for you today. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and as always, big thanks to my patrons. Big thanks to all of you for watching, and as always, have a great day.